There's a lot of things that people think are going to contribute to their health, but I want you to know the one thing that trumps all others is food, and it's plant-based foods. Whether it is heart disease, whether it is prostate cancer, breast cancer, type 2 diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, hypertension, insulin resistance, all these things, these are just different faces of the same animal, which is day after day, week after week, year after year, we're pounding our bodies with processed refined foods and animal-based products and dairy. And you just flip-flop that, and now you make the majority of your calories count from fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans, and the body has the miraculous ability to reverse all these diseases and prevent these diseases. So again, food trumps all. It's about the food.
I've been so in awe of the human body, even more so after all these years of working so intimately with it. And to see the human body make the changes towards health. There's an innate force. The body wants to be healthy. Inside every fat, sick person, there's a lean, healthy, normal person with normal blood pressure, normal blood sugar in there. They're just encased in their bad habits. They're encased in the wrong choices, and it manifests itself in all this tissue. And there's such beautiful justice in the world that with the right food, the natural food of humans, the body tends to, it reclaims its natural heritage of health. It doesn't move the other way. And there's such an affirmation of life and of rightness in that alone is enough to keep me going. But the personal contact, I'm a very active staff physician at True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California. And it's both an inpatient and outpatient facility. People come and stay with us for several weeks, and we feed them a lean, clean, plant-based diet, no oils, no sugars, no refined carbohydrates, no breads. Lots of, as I said, fruits and oatmeal and soups and salads and steamed greens, and to see these people transform right in front of your eyes, it's exciting to see. But to know what it's doing for their spirit, the look in their eye when they leave, that yes, I did this. Yes, I reached down inside myself and found enough strength to make some changes, and it worked, and it paid off. They have a feeling of victory about it. And then I know they're going to go home, and they will have a positive influence on their family. People will notice. And that's exciting to know that I've not only helped this person help themselves, but 5 or 6 people I'll probably never meet will benefit from the work that was done here. So I find practicing nutritional medicine extremely satisfying. I still do urgent care, blood and guts medical work, and it's a beautiful craft to suture a laceration beautifully and anatomically correctly, and to give someone an antibiotic who has a terrible pneumonia and know that they're going to get better from it. But I know these are temporary alignments. They're not really helping the long-term flow of that person's life, like helping them eat better and live a healthier lifestyle.
I've been taking care of patients. I've taken care of about 5,000 people in a live-in residential setting, and I can't tell you the number of people I've taken care of as outpatients, and the results are consistent. In other words, I tell people, if you make this fundamental, great change by the way, if you make this change, you should expect dramatic results. And that's what I see in people. And without exception, overweight people, when they switch to a starch-based diet, get a little exercise, as long as they follow it truly like they're supposed to, they lose that excess weight. People's bowels start working, their indigestion goes away, their blood pressure comes down, their cholesterol comes down, they start feeling and functioning well, they look younger, they look more attractive. I mean, that's what I consistently see. This is as close as the connection of a half a bottle of whiskey and a hangover. You know, smoking a pack of cigarettes and having a terrible cough. What would you expect to happen when you change people's diets? We've documented some of the benefits in terms of numbers. The average drop in cholesterol in 7 days is about 28 points. The average drop in blood pressure is about 10 over 10 millimeters of mercury, and most people stop their blood pressure lowering medications. We get almost all type 2 diabetics off their medications. People throw away their antacids and laxatives. So it's a very expected, consistent result when people make this fundamental change. There are some things that a good diet will treat and other things that it won't. And you can't expect a good diet to treat non-dietary diseases. Like AIDS is not a dietary disease. Trauma from an auto accident is not a dietary disease. It'd be inappropriate to think that changing the diet is going to be of any major impact on these particular problems. Of course, everybody needs to eat well and be as healthy as possible. So my practice and the benefits I see from my prescription is that people who suffer from diseases of the rich Western diet, the diseases caused by eating animal foods, particularly we're talking about beef and chicken and fish and pork and cheeses and milks, those diseases, when you fix the cause, and that's the cause of the problems, what happens is when you get the oil out of their diet and these animal foods, people get well. So that's a big swath of the population of people. You're talking about 80 to 90% of the chronic diseases that people suffer from, you can take care of by fixing the cause, which is the food.
I guess I have to say I'm a vegetarian or a vegan. And that's not where I started out to be. The problem is really big. Adults overweight, 65%, a third of us are obese, the youth are especially vulnerable. During any given week, according to some surveys, half of us take at least one prescription drug in this country, and 4 out of 5 of us take some kind of medication. But yet, the drug reactions, the adverse drug reactions and other medication errors make it the number 3 cause of death in this country. 225,000 people a year. How many times have you seen that? Heart disease, number 1, cancer, number 2, and going to the doctor, number 3? That's a pretty tough message. Yet at the same time, the cost of medical care in this country is the highest it is in the world. Germany's second, it's only 60% of us. So we're paying a lot in many ways. And so in the final analysis, we now know that most of these disease-related deaths, really quite frankly, are preventable by diet. There now have been dozens of studies, so-called migrant studies, when we know that when people move from one risk area, from a high-risk area to a low-risk area, and vice versa, they get the disease of the country to which they move without changing their genes. Interesting. So it's an environmental, and we'd argue largely a dietary sort of phenomenon. But I sort of wonder a little bit why it is that these days we're emphasizing genetics so much as a cause of disease. I mean, I'll just say this, every single biological event that we experience starts out with a gene. But that does not mean the genes are sitting there and sort of doing their own thing. These genes have to get expressed, and that's where nutrition comes into play. And so, quite frankly, we've known in the field for a long time that not more than 2 to 3% of cancers, for example, that is really attributable to genes. It's nutrition. Okay. When we went to the Philippines, and because of my previous training, trying to grow cows better and regarding the animal protein so highly, we were led to believe that if you're going to actually feed kids in the third world, one of the most important things is to make sure they got enough protein. And what they generally meant by that was making sure they got enough animal-based protein. Okay? So that's what I did when I first got involved in the Philippine study. But then I noted through sort of happenstance and, as it were, an observation, namely that higher protein intakes, quite frankly, were associated with higher rates of liver cancer in children. We had another project going trying to figure out what really caused liver cancer, by the way. And we thought it was related to a so-called mycotoxin or a mold toxin called aflatoxin, and that was the theory of the day. And in any case, what really turned out to be the case, and this was exactly the opposite what, in fact, I had been taught, the people who were getting liver cancer were the ones consuming like us. the highest intake of animal protein, or animal-based diets, if you will. I didn't think too much in terms of protein per se, but eating like Westerners. It raised the question, the great American diet causing cancer? At this time, this work really was handsomely funded, quite frankly, by funding from our public till and from professional agencies, and did, of course, get published extensively. And you might wonder, how did that happen if I'm coming on this idea of protein? Well, in those days when we were doing this, I was focused on trying to understand what caused cancer. And so we were looking at this sort of model, if you will, studying all these mechanisms of cancer. So the question that we had was, did liver tumors really grow faster when rats are fed normal compared to low protein diets? That was the question, because here the Indian workers have found this. This normal level of protein just turned on tumor growth. It's amazing. 12%, which is just above the level they actually need for growth. Even there, it was turning it on. But once you get below 10%, we looked at that, you didn't see really much any activity. Protein is required, by the way. It's obviously an essential nutrient. But what we were basically showing was when we went above the level that actually was needed, that's when the problems started. And quite frankly, most of us consume more protein than we need. So finally, I'm going to tell you what the protein is. I didn't talk a lot about it, certainly not in the grant applications that I was getting and so forth, but this protein was casein, cow's milk protein, 87% of cow's milk protein. And I've had quite a lot of experience with the agencies, both in this country and abroad, as the United Nations, who look after deciding, what's a carcinogen, what's not. And there are certain criteria that these folks follow. Criteria that determine when we decide a chemical is carcinogenic, if you will. The IARC, the International Agency for Research on Cancer. If I apply that evidence, these criteria that's used by everybody else to decide what's a carcinogen, I have to conclude there's no other way. And I've given this seminar to professional audiences in universities about 4 or 5 times now with this chart. And I don't get any questions, I don't get any comments. Everybody sort of sits there and kind of stunned. But quite frankly, I have to say that casein, which I'm going to argue is reflective of a larger sort of body of evidence having to do with animal proteins in general, is a carcinogen. It's the most significant carcinogen we consume. This effect works also for mammary tumors, that's breast cancer. I had a colleague at the University of Illinois who was working on this at the time, not going into quite so much detail as we did, but nonetheless getting similar results, showing that he could control mammary tumor development as well. Also, this effect could be used in cases where the tumor was started with either a chemical carcinogen or a virus. I mean, some viruses start cancer, like hepatitis B virus that kills the liver cancer. We could basically turn that on and turn it on off too, simply by changing protein intake. The specificity, that's where really things really kind of started heating up, because in this case, when we use soy or wheat, same level, 20%, it didn't do it. Kind of unique for casein.